Righty then.
This is the Bryan Suits Show.
Wake up!
Whoever set this up is an idiot.
To work together, as we continue to work together on.
No more comments!
Oh, righty then.
This is the Bryan Suits Show.
She tries to push back a few times.
Yeah, and he's, pointing out that because she's going with the propaganda about, well, they're all drug addicted Nazis, and he's saying, look, it doesn't matter. It's their country. It's on their soil, and you can't take conscripts and throw them at people that are fighting for their home. And he's it's funny because as I see the translation, he's on the verge of saying we're literally doing the same thing the Nazis did in 1941, and we're making the same mistakes. And this is a country immediately next door to us, and we can't resupply guys 20 miles away from our own soil with beans, bullets, and Band-Aids.
And this was said on Russian state TV with a panel of about 5 or 6 other prominent voices. And I do think it is kind of shocking because, as we know, Putin has made it illegal to even hint at questioning the special military operation over there.
Yeah. But so it's indicative of, it's not a first crack. The cracks have been there. You just have to know where to look. And like in the American media, this is making the headlines because it was on their equivalent, their analog. It was on Russian state media. And they're saying, shocking events. Is this a turning point? Well, the turning point was a couple weeks ago when the word got out that Russian artillery units were not executing artillery missions that they were told to do. And by the way, this is a very concerning event yesterday, is that there's a pretty clear strategy on the part of the Russians, and I would call it sort of the Vandal strategy with Ukraine, that they intend to get out of the war somehow and allow the Ukrainians to take back as much territory as they want. What the Russians are busy doing is ruining the current wheat export plans of Ukraine by, blockading the last port is Odessa and all this. And they're also mail chicken blocking the Ukrainians' ability to put it on a train to a country not at war with Russia, that'd be Romania, right to their south on the Black Sea, and shipping it out that way because they're blowing up all the rail bridges. And then yesterday they blew up a fertilizer warehouse. And it seems like, wow, that's dumb. No, that's a silly target. Who did that? That must be a mistake. No, that's intentional because the fertilizer that they use, ammonium nitrate, which everyone uses, is the reason that the normal crop yield around the world is not 50% less than what it was last year because we fertilize it. And so this is a blow for every farm within 50 miles of that warehouse. They're not going to have fertilizer because it all blew up. And by the way, ammonium nitrate is the Oklahoma City fertilizer bomb. It's the Beirut. You remember that explosion in Beirut, a year and a half ago?
Oh, yeah.
A year ago?
Uh-huh,
it was like, it looked atomic.
Yeah, right.
It looked like Hiroshima. That was ammonium nitrate. So when you hit it, it burns, and what doesn't burn blows up. And so anyway, this is the farmland that the Chinese own, that President Xi owns. So this is the real story is not that the Ukrainians are putting up a vicious defense and they're about to go on a major counteroffensive. Wink, wink. The real story is that the Russian exit strategy is to ruin Ukraine's ability to export the wheat they already currently have in warehouses and the wheat they intend to harvest in October, November. And just watch what's happening. They're eating rich people in Sri Lanka. I'll tell you about that in just a second. Well, at least they're robbing them. Then they're eating them. AM 770 KTTH, Bryan Suits here. Let's get you to work with them. Just so you know I'm not insane. Here's the retired Russian colonel speaking Russian on Russian TV last night.
Должен сказать, что не надо пить информационное успокоительное.
There. Anyway. He said we should not take, and he talked about Kremlin propaganda here. He says, first of all, I must say that we shouldn't take information tranquilizers. And so, has anyone checked on him today? I don't know. But anyway, he went on for more than 4.5 minutes, and it's viral on Russian social media, such as it is, because they're not going to firewall their own official state channel from the approved social media. So it's, I think it's indicative of larger cracks that we're not seeing.
It's a BFD.
It really is. I think so. But I think the bigger FD is the one below the surface that only listeners of KTTH know. And so the first hearings on these UFOs are going on in I want to play this yesterday. Pentagon spokesperson John Kirby, who I think is going to be asked a lot about UFOs today and Ukraine. And pointing out that Putin can thank himself for the expansion of NATO.
NATO is a defensive alliance. It has never, and it does not now pose a threat to any other nation, and that includes Russia. 2, it's not up to Mr. Putin or any other third party to get a veto on whether a nation joins NATO or not. That is between that nation and the other members of NATO to decide. And again, there's a multi-step process here. 3, I think we need to remember who is
third thing
actually the aggressor here and whose actions.
Anyway, you get the idea about the NATO and whose motto is FAFO now. And so that will be the stuff of later on today. Real quickly, the surrender by Ukrainian defenders of the Azovstal steel factory is done now, and they've been wounded and not unwounded men have been driven back to Russia. There is going to be a controlled prisoner exchange. The Ukrainians have thousands of Russian prisoners. The Russians at this point have approximately 27,000 dead on day 85 of this war. This is nuts. But thousands of missing who don't want to be reported as prisoners. It's your option. You can report it to the Red Cross, but you can request that they not report that you're a POW to your country. The Ukrainians have thousands of military-age guys in uniform, many of which want to repurpose, as it were, and come on board the team for the big win. And now that they see how they've been lied to, so the Russians are playing a game now to sort of minimize the damage. Doing it on TV, you're going to hear about that all day long. Also, we'll have it up, my video explaining what 1/3 of the Russians' troop loss really means by use of a visual aid, A4. All right, thanks to producer Greg. Tomorrow is Wednesday, and we'll clean up a big news mess that's going to be happening all day long today. Dan Bongino is up next. Bryan Suits here. We'll see you back tomorrow at Dark Secret Place on the Twitter machine.
David writes in regards to our vice president's mastery of oratory and speechifying. Repeating the same word or phrase many times in the same paragraph, Kamala's speechwriter needs Grammarly or maybe a redo of a high school writing class. I will say that as a public speaker, the way to really get your point across is to say the same thing 4 different ways. But Kamala Harris tends to say the same thing 4 times in exactly the same way.
We will work together and continue to work together to address these issues, to tackle these challenges, and to work together as we continue to work, operating from the new norms, rules, and agreements that we will convene to work together on. And I know we will work on this together.
I compressed that a little bit, but she said work together 5 times in 25 seconds.
Yeah, and if the face palms that her staff do, and that's part of the reason behind the scenes, and because our media is covering for her, that they don't cover this, but the turnover in staff is approximately the same as it was when she was a senator from California, and then the attorney general of California, then the prosecutor of the city of San Francisco. Ask Kimberly Guilfoyle. Though she doesn't, it's funny how those two loathe each other from their time in the San Francisco prosecutor's office, but they never talk about it. Kimberly Guilfoyle, by the way, formerly from Fox News, was fired by Kamala Harris.
Great photo with Gavin Newsom you can find.
Oh
online.
Yeah, from Vogue. They're sliming on a carpet.
Opulence. They has it.
Oh, it's so great that photo. They has it. Hope it done. Well, the siege at the Azovstal plant in Mariupol is over. The Russians agreeing to a prisoners deal. The wounded and other surrendered defenders of the Azovstal actually have gotten on buses and been taken back to Russia today. And will we ever hear from them again? I don't know, but that's the thing with a prisoner exchange is Zelensky has approximately a 100-to-1 ratio of captured Russians, surrendered Russians, than the Russians have. So anyway, more on that when we come back. And so Biden will go and visit the Buffalo community and
getting involved with the community,
and they'll raise money because it'll be a gun issue. And it's a very shiny object. It avoids talking about, well, why didn't you have a backup plan for all that baby formula in the pipeline instead of pulling it off the shelves? That's difficult. What's the thing about reversing the Trump policy and sending troops, special operations guys, to Somalia? What can go wrong there? And all that. Too many hard. Oh, by the way, the Putin price hike. How did that raise the price of diesel? This to record levels now. And are there enough electric vehicles to drive my lettuce to Safeway? No. So
let's not forget that also another crisis we're in the midst of and is going to get worse on May 23rd is when Title 42 goes away. And there's going to be a massive influx of illegal immigrants at the border. And I've got audio, Brian, from Democrat Senator Michael Bennett in front of a congressional hearing on this. And here's what he had to say.
And right now, the administration has the resources to process 3,500 migrants a day at the border. But they're receiving 8,000 a day. And we could see up to 18,000 a day by this summer. If that happens, the money's going to run out in July, Madam President, overwhelming any border infrastructure and deepening the humanitarian crisis that's there. And none of this should surprise us. There's a surge at the border every summer, and since we know what's coming, we need a plan. And I'm sorry to say this, but the administration doesn't have one.
And this, again, with Democrats, likely Democrat voters, this polls way higher than any, but besides inflation and affecting the price of gas and groceries, the two G's, even with people that are, they think are not supposed to be watching Fox, are watching coverage, even on other networks, about the border. And you know what's crazy? Again, this is me pulling the cynical mask off this business. Other networks, the CNNs and MSNBCs, have seen the ratings go up when they cover the border story. It's an undeniable crisis. And the money talks louder than anything else. And so if there's any coverage on other networks, it is because they make money when people watch that. And people watch. Fox has been making money hand over fist because they've been covering the news. And just because you don't send someone down to Eagle Pass, Texas. Finally, last week, MSNBC sent their midday guy, Jose Diaz-Balart, down there. And the ratings last week, daytime, which have always been moribund, went crazy. And so, finally, luckily the marketplace of news, will drive that. What they don't like about that is it's yet another thing that highlights what things used to be like a year and a half ago and what things are like now, and that they were better a year and a half ago. They don't like that.
Last bit of audio I want to play for you, Brian, was this exchange between Peter Doocy and new White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre. We played yesterday a flashback of Jen Psaki being asked by Peter Doocy, hey, why didn't the president go to Waukesha, Wisconsin, where a person deliberately mowed down 6 people with a motor vehicle, injured 40 others? Where was the Biden administration on the ground there? They were MIA. And Psaki said, well, we lack the resources and the president can't be everywhere.
That's not that's right. But that was the flashback. Is it's not where he visits, it's where he doesn't visit. And it was a black driver who swerved to hit and kill white people. And no one's going to write a check to the Democratic Party for that one.